In the ancient village of Okidunra, nestled beneath the shadows of rocks that seemed to touch the sky, lived a woman named Kikalomo. Her life was a mystery, a story whispered by the elders and mocked by the youth. She was born during a solar eclipse, a moment when the world turned the color of a bruised plum. And this event tethered her to a destiny that reversed the natural order of life. Kikalomo was a night seer. She only truly lived when the moon climbed the horizon. The moment the first rays of the sun struck the earth, she would fall into a death-like trance, while the rest of the village labored in the fields, haggled in the markets, or gathered under the baobab trees to share stories. Kike's windows were boarded with heavy timber. This was not to hide, but to keep out the very light that threatened to unseat her soul. The villagers, not understanding her condition, had a name for her, Irupa, the shadow of the staff. They believed her daytime sleep was a mark of witchcraft, or perhaps just profound laziness. They were completely unaware that her rest was actually a form of grueling labor. In her dreams, she walked what she called the back roads of the spirit. There she patrolled the very borders of the village's fate, absorbing the spiritual shocks and misfortunes meant for the entire community. In these dream walks she saw everything. She saw the termites of greed eating away at the palace foundations. She felt the thirst of the crops months before the rains failed. She tried to warn them, her voice heavy with the echoes of the spirit world, but her words were treated like the ravings of a ghost. To them, she was a specter who spoke of doom but never broke a sweat under the sun. This tension reached a breaking point during a particularly harsh dry season. A wealthy palm wine merchant, a man named Babaji, decided to clear the ancient forest at the base of the Great Rock. He wanted to build storehouses to expand his wealth. Kikalomo, rising from a terrible dream of fire and screaming trees, stood before the village council. Her eyes were still heavy, still seeing the world between worlds. She warned them that the roots of those trees held a sacred pact with the mountain. If that pact were broken, the very air would turn into a furnace. Babaji laughed. He mocked her as a thief of daylight, someone who contributed nothing to the village's sweat and toil. Blinded by his promises of wealth and prosperity, the community agreed. They cleared the trees. Within days, Kikilomo's nightmare became reality. A lightning strike from a cloudless sky ignited the dry, stacked timber. Without the ancient forest to act as a windbreak, a ferocious fire began to race toward the village like a hungry red dog. Panic erupted. People ran, shouting and crying, their homes and lives threatened. And all the while, Kikalomo was trapped in her daylight sleep. In her dream, her spirit guides urged her to let the village burn. It was the price for their mockery, for their ignorance. But as she looked upon the dream forms of the children she had watched over night after night, she knew she couldn't. She had to make a choice. In that moment, Kikalomo made the ultimate sacrifice. She threw open the heavy wooden doors of her home and stepped out into the blinding, scorching afternoon sun. The physical agony was immediate. The sunlight felt like 1,000 needles piercing her night-tuned skin, her sensitive eyes. But she staggered forward, toward the village square. There, with what little strength she had left, she began to sing. It was an ancient song, a song of the eclipse, a melody that resonated with the earth itself. Her song was not just a plea, it was a guide. It directed the frantic men to hidden underground springs she had seen only in her dreams, veins of pure, life-giving water that the villagers never knew existed right beneath their feet. They dug desperately, their fear turning into frantic hope. And then, they struck it. Cold, powerful water gushed from the earth. She lay in a coma for 7 days and 7 nights. During that time, the village kept a silent, repentant vigil outside her home. The laughter and mockery were gone, replaced by shame and a dawning understanding. When she finally woke, something had changed. The spiritual weight that had forced her to sleep by day, the burden of her birth, had shifted. From that day on, Kikalomo walked in the daylight. Her sight was forever weakened, but her vision had never been clearer. And the village of Edinar learned a profound lesson, that wisdom often arrives in uncomfortable forms, and that the most beautiful things are often forged in the dark.